Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Tester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want you fired up about the book Eros of Angels. Its author is Radomir Luza. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Radomir, thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
How are you? How's life treating you? I hope it's heavenly.
It is. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Now, as is the tradition of the show, we always give our authors an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few people out there that might not be familiar with you or your work. So my first question for you is, what makes you you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, what makes me me is, I think, honesty, first of all, and truth. I like to get it across in my life and in my work as well. And you can see it in this book if you read it. Also, I'm very artistic and quite psychological, and I think a lot, probably too much. But that comes with the sensitivity that I have, because I'm very sensitive, so I feel what's around me, and then you start to think about it, and that adds to the poetry, and adds to the imagery I have, and adds to the life and the color and the shape and the form I bring to my work. And I love love. I love romance, and I love what that is all about, and that adds to the romantic and Renaissance and love poetry that I have. And politics, too. I ran for office once. I wouldn't mind doing it again, if it's the right office and the right place. And I love politics very much. So, and then there's philosophy and metaphysics. I'm very philosophical, metaphysical. And that part of me also comes across in the poetry and in this book especially. And it helps solve the question, what is it to be human? And why are we here? And what are we doing here? And what can we do to make it better for everybody else while we're here? How do we touch the lives around us while we're on this asteroid, this turquoise orb, What can we possibly do to make it the journey somewhat easier for somebody else and
Absolutely.
lighter for us ourselves?
Now, when it comes to being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that it simply presented itself along your life's path?
Both. I think I wanted to do it since I was a child, because I got a book of poetry when I was 8 years old, when I was like in 4th grade, and I was just really absorbed with it. I really loved it, and I read it, and I kept it by my side for a long time, and I felt it was something I'd love to do myself as to write poetry, but I never had the confidence, or I didn't think I had the talent to do it. But then I found out that I did along the way, and so the opportunity presented itself to write books and to get published and to win contests, as I recently won the 2021 San Gabriel Valley Poetry Festival book contest. And I learned that to be an artist and to be an author is to be a storyteller and to be someone who tells it like it is, not like you want it to be or like it should be, but like it is. And that's the hardest thing. Sometimes people don't like that, and sometimes people don't want to listen to that or watch that. But that's the part that I love the most, telling it like it is, like Howard Cosell would say.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, the title of your book, Eros of Angels, why did you choose those 3 words to entitle your book?
Well, in Greek, I think Eros means love, so they have 3 tenets of love in the Greek mythology, and Eros is one of them. And so I used that, Eros, and then I thought angels were full of love, and especially now there's more and more thought and more mystique and more literature about angels. And so I thought the love of angels would be a beautiful title for a book, and that's where it came from, and that's what it's about. But the book is certainly not about that sort of thing very much. It's more about a tribute to Los Angeles. It's more about being homeless in the streets of LA. It's more about politics and romance. And there's a section in the middle of the book about 20 short little poems that give you a real life, as I've said earlier, telling it like it is about what it's like to be homeless in the city. And I wrote all of them while I was homeless. So I wasn't fake. I wasn't writing them in a palace or a mansion or a castle. I was writing them while I was homeless on, garbage cans and at night on trees and stuff. So, that really gives you a heart-wrenching and heart-pulling version of homelessness in a city you don't know, in a city where if you're bipolar like I am, I was off my meds, and in a city where you don't know any of the streets you're on or where you're going because you've never been here before. And so, and I was going through a tough divorce at the time too with my ex-wife, so who I still respect and admire, but we just didn't hit it off. But anyway, those 3 or 4 things together could have really shattered me or caused me to kill myself or something, but it didn't. And poetry is one of the main reasons why, because I use that as a outlet, as a way to get out the feelings I had and the fear I had, the tragedy I was feeling, the frustration I was feeling, the anguish I was feeling, And so that's, to answer your question, I forget what the question was. Sorry.
No problem. No problem. Now, you chose poetry. Why does poetry so deeply appeal to you? Is there any one thing, or is it poetry in its totality? Is it the simply the form of expression that it is and all that it can be that appeals to you, or is there one particular aspect that really speaks to you more than another?
No, it's everything. As you said, it's what it is and what it can be. Probably more what it can be. You're always arcing or arching or moving towards some sort of goal with poetry, making your next poem better than the last one. And so it's always a movement, a feeling, a stretching towards something greater than yourself, That's what I love about poetry. It's something greater than myself. I think we all should find something greater than ourselves to aim for, to strive for in this world. Because if all we have is ourselves, that's just not enough, I don't think. I think we should all strive for something greater. And every time I sit down, I'll say to myself, well, what are you trying to say? And I'll say, well, try to say it with rhyme or with imagery or with metaphors or with similes or with syntax, and that way I know that I'm penning a really good poem, and that's what appeals to me the most, I would say.
I can definitely understand that. Now, when you were writing your book, did you have a particular reader in mind? Did you write this in a way that it's appropriate for, let's say, our teenagers, our high schoolers, to understand what you're saying? Or would you say perhaps older than college might be a better baseline?
I wouldn't say any of it. I would say I wrote it just to write it. And if a 3-year-old wants to read it, or a 15-year-old or a 25-year-old, let them all read it. Let them all get something out of it if they can. It wasn't for high schoolers or preschoolers or college kids or seniors or middle-aged. It was for everybody. It was for everybody, the whole world, for every whole human being to read. And that's how I write my books. And that's how I write my poems. It's for everyone to take something out of it, to get something out of it, to be inspired, enlightened, and moved and touched. It's not one particular group or category.
I like that. So it is definitely open for all. I love it. I love it. Now, if you could be doing anything else, what would it be? If you weren't a poet, what else would you be doing, do you think?
Probably two things. It's the three P's with me: poetry, priesthood, and politics. So it's those three P's.
As far as your book is concerned, a lot of authors, their goal um, is to have a prize-winning book, in that they've written something that they want to be able to submit to, those various organizations that can give them some type of accolade or accommodation for their book. Is that something that is on your to-do list? Is that something that you aspire to do as well?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I hate to say it, but I really believe that if someone writes a collection of poetry and they know in their heart it's really good, it's really the best thing they've ever done, and they don't think it deserves an award, then they're just lying to themselves. And I think many times we're judged on the amount of and the kind of and the certain kind of awards we get. And so this book that won the 2021 San Gabriel Valley Poetry Festival, which is not Eros of Angels, but another book. It's called Losing Me, Poems from Bed 23C, which is about this nursing home that I'm in right now. I want to submit that to a Pulitzer Prize committee come next month, because I think it really should get up there and could win a Pulitzer, or at least be a Pulitzer finalist. But to win one would be nice. And I also wouldn't mind winning the Nobel Prize in literature. But I say that with a caveat. I don't say that because of my ego or because I think I'm the greatest there ever was or whatever. I say it because I think if people see that in a book, they'll buy more of it. And if they buy more of it, they'll be touched more and inspired more and enlightened more, and they'll be able to change more lives, and the book will be able to change more lives. So that's the main reason I think it's for it, and not marketing or promotional purposes, but more spiritual reasons. I think those awards to me are more spiritual in nature than they are in commercial reasons. I just do. I don't know why. I just think that.
Well, it is time for us to go to break, but before we do, can you please remind everyone, Radomir, please, the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Yeah, the title of my book is Eros of Angels. You can get it at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, anywhere they sell books. You can also get it from me in my email, which is Radluza, RADLUZA, the number 2 at yahoo.com, or call me at 818-452-8608.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is Radomir Luza, and we are talking about his book, Eros of Angels. And my next question for you is about the process of being an author. For so many people out there, they love when I ask these questions because it kind of inspires them to figure out what it is that they need to do. With that being said, when you were choosing whether or not you wanted to self-publish or if you wanted to use a publishing house, how did you determine which was best for you?
Well, I'll be honest. I don't think there was a big publishing house in this country that wanted to publish Eros of Angels. I think that's one of the problems in this country right now, is that we don't have enough support for the arts. We have the National Endowment for the Arts, but the government there's not enough support for the arts from the government. And so there's no real big publishing houses that want to take chances on up-and-coming authors, especially not poets. Fiction writers and poets have it the toughest, especially poets. They're the low rung on the artistic food chain. So I had to go with the self-publishing house, so I went with Author House, and you can also get the book at authorhouse.com. And that's what I had to do. I had to go with that, and they were good to me. They came through. They edited well. I edited it well, and we had a very good book. And it's 400 pages plus pages, and it's the longest book I've ever written. Now, I doubt I'll ever write anything long like that again, but it serves its purpose, and it does what it's supposed to do: move people, touch people, and get them to think about their own lives and the lives around them. And so I just wrote the self-publisher, that's all, and I think people should do that if they want to get published. There's nothing wrong with that.
Now, my next question for you is, as far as advice is concerned, we have so many folks out there that unfortunately they don't know anyone who's ever authored a book, so they only know what the internet tells them. There's not that personal relationship with someone to really go to them and seek their advice. If there is one or two pieces of advice that you could share with someone who's an aspiring author, something that you wish someone had said to you before you got started, or if there was a step in the process that really needed to have a definitive answer and you needed time to consider, what would that be? What piece of advice can you pass on to that aspiring author out there?
I would tell them to follow their instinct, to follow their guts. If they want to write. Don't let anybody or anything stand in the way. And also write about what you know. Write about what you know. If you know about sports, write about baseball. If you know about art, write about ballet. If you know about religion, write about being Jewish. But write about something you know. That way you can really write in full, substantive, and contentive words and give people what they want to know, and you can do it in your own style and your own substance. But definitely, to be a writer, you got to find your own path, your own journey, and often it's the one less traveled. So you got to go where no one else has gone often. And that means trust your instinct, trust your gut, go with what you know, and go with what you feel is right, no matter what anybody else says.
Absolutely. I cannot agree with you more. And, I think that tends to be a problem for so many people, is that they try to write about something that they only have an elementary level of understanding, but they're trying to write on a college level. And it's like, it's okay. Just write on that elementary school level, write on that 101 level, and just allow people, to kind of dip their toe in it the same way that you've dipped your toe in it. So I love that you say that. And as you grow as an author, as a person, you're able to grow as an author. I love it. I love it. Now, as far as the feeling of being an author, when you finally completed your first book, it's out there, it's available for the public, and you have your first copy in your hands. Radomir, how did you feel in that moment to have your published work in your hands?
Well, you just feel a high. You just feel absolutely out of this world, like you're gonna jump on Mars and then go to Venus. It just felt really beautiful. It felt like nothing else I've ever done before, nothing else I've ever felt before. I mean, you can win all the track meet ribbons you want, and for dash and 100-yard dash or the long jump, but you will never feel as good as you ever do but publishing a book, because it's just you're helping the world, you're helping civilization and society, you're moving things along as they should be moved along by God and by the Spirit and by the Holy Ghost and all that stuff, and it's just a fabulous, wonderful, and enlightened feeling. Never felt like it before, and I don't think I ever have. Especially the first book. The first is always the one that you feel the most, because that's the one that you've never done it before, and it's the first time you've done it. So the first one was very special, and I got it on a TV show in New Orleans where I wrote it, and so it was really something I knew I needed to do more of, and I've done it 34 times so far. I've written 34 books. So, it's something that I love to do, and I'm going to keep doing till the day I die.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love authors that know that this is who they are. It's like, I am a diehard author, and I am going to share until I cannot share anymore.
Right, absolutely.
Most people I think appreciate that, because especially those people who wish to continue to learn. I believe that we should learn something new every day, or we should at least aspire to learn something new every day, and it really and truly makes a difference in how we live our lives. Now, speaking of future endeavors, what are some of your future plans? What do you have on your list of to-dos?
Well, I'm going to write more books. I'm in the process of entering many poetry contests. So far, about 18 or 19. With another book about this nursing home, which has got 65 poems in it instead of 25, and also writing another third book about this nursing home, which has got different kind of poems in it. I want to enter those in poetry contests as well. And past that, I don't know. I haven't really given it that much thought. I try to live in the present much more than dwell on the future, but I guess you have to.
Yeah.
So I guess I would just say more poetry about people, because I'm a people person through it all. Not every artist and not every poet is, because they spend a lot of time isolated and by themselves. But I'm a people person, and I would really write more poems about people, about what makes them who they are, about what makes them say what they say, what makes them do what they do mainly, what makes them tick, what makes them kill, what makes them love, what makes them hate, what makes them give. So I would probably write more poems about people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love the fact that even though you are writing while in a nursing home, you are able to still share. You are still able to even do interviews like this. That you have not allowed that to disconnect you from the rest of the world, and in fact, you're using that as a catalyst to move you forward and to introduce you to other people. Simply because you are choosing to write and to share the various stories that you are able to share with the world. And I love it. I love it. I love it when people think outside of the box and they don't allow a situation to really overpower them, but instead they find a way to shine no matter what. I love it. I love it. Well, Radomir, my last question.
Well, it's very nice to say. I just want to say that I really appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Very, very sweet. Very kind. Thank you. It means the world to me that comes to you for you to say that, especially coming from you. It means a lot. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And I think that people should tell people. So we have a tendency to wait until like the end of something, or until something huge has happened to share kind words or inspiring words with people. And I think that we should tell them in the moment. If you're proud of someone, tell them in the moment. If you're happy for someone, share that happiness in the moment and really let them know. So thank you for that. It is definitely a way to inspire.
You're welcome. You're right what you just said. You should do it in the moment, not 10 years later. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I unfortunately, I did just come from a funeral a few days ago, and we have all these glowing and loving things to say about this person, and
Yeah.
I think about that, and it's like so many times we wait until a friend or a family member or a loved one is no longer with us to have all of these glowing words, and it's like
You're
tell
right.
them
You're
while
right.
they're here, let them know how much you appreciate them, how much you
You're
see
absolutely right. Yeah.
what they are doing. So I love it. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
my last question for you, Radomir, is about a bit of just that, of inspiration, but not just for authors, but for those out there, and especially our younger people that are trying to figure out what to do in the world, which way to go, and how to stay positive. Do you have any bits of advice for them or any words of encouragement to just make sure that people keep moving forward?
Yeah, two things. Number one, do something that helps other people. Do something that is good for other people. Do something that moves them along. That's not just for yourself. Be selfless. Do something bigger than yourself. Something you can really get lost in and love. And secondly, trust your instinct. I think the instinct is God. I think poetry is the literary bridge to God, and I think your instinct is God, and I think love is God. So I think love something, love yourself first, and that's the basic, love yourself, and also find something that goes with your instinct that you can use as a joystick for your instinct, something you can use to drive the car with your instinct, and that doesn't go against what you believe or what you are, but that goes with it, that sort of like a river slowly and smoothly glides along with your instinct. And that's what I think people should be doing. They should be loving and trusting their instinct.
I love it. Well, Radomir Luza, I have enjoyed my time with you here today, and thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with me. Before I let you go, one last time, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And, of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Yeah, the title of my book is Eros of Angels. You can get it at authorhouse.com, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, or my email address, radluza, RADLUZA, the number 2 at yahoo.com, or my phone number, 818-452-8608.
I love it. Thank you again for being a guest on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you for hosting me. I really appreciate every second of it. God bless you.
You as well. And listeners, thank you for spending some time with us here today as well. May the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchchester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to say it with me, enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want to get you fired up about poetry. My guest today is Alvina PLATT Gregory, and we are talking about her book, Poetic Parables. Listen with your heart. Now, you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Alvina. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Well, good morning, Dr. Angela.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I cannot wait to talk to you about your book. But as is tradition here, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few people out there that are unfamiliar with you or your work. So first question for you is, what makes you you? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, what makes me is all the gifts and talents that God has given to me and that I share with others. I am a retired health and physical education teacher of 30 years. I received my diploma in biblical studies from Living Faith Christian Training Center, and I have 2 beautiful grandsons and 3 wonderful sons.
I love it. I love it. Well, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do? Or did you find that life simply presented it, right place, right time, and you said, absolutely?
I started young. I always wanted to be an author. I even took a correspondence course with writing children's books, but that didn't happen. So the time wasn't right. So I always wanted to be. And now the time is here.
Absolutely. I love how life has a way of working itself all out. I talk to so many authors and they'll say, I had no idea I was going to be an author. It's like, but God did. So, it's like, welcome to the pack. So I love it. I love it. Now, the title of your book, Poetic Parables, Listen with Your Heart. I really like that title. How did you determine that would be the title of your book?
Well, my poetry is short stories with spiritual undertones, and that's how Jesus taught. He would talk to people situations that they were familiar with. He would use those short stories and had the spiritual undertones. And so I said, hey, it was well with Jesus. Why not do that? Since I listen to what God tells me anyway.
I like that. I like that. That totally makes sense. I can understand why you would take that point of view. I love it. See, that's why I always ask that question, because you never know, at least I don't know, what the author's going to say. And it's like, oh, wow, that could definitely be inspiration for someone else. Now, when it comes to your book and the way that people should really utilize the poetry that you're sharing with us, now I usually ask, should we read it cover to cover, chapter by chapter? With poetry, it's a little bit different. So do you suggest that they read it more like a devotional, where perhaps they take a page a day and really roll that around in their spirit before moving on? Or can they take in the whole book from cover to cover at one time?
It depends on the reader. If they want to do it one at a time, or when situations happen and they want to read one poem a day, or they want to sit down and take it all in, it depends on how well they want to receive and how hungry they are to hear from God.
Oh, I like that. So if you want to take in more, take in more. If you need a little less on that day, then just do the one page. I love it. I love it. And you're right. I think when it comes to our spiritual self, that we do need to remember that sometimes we do need a little bit more. The same way that our physical bodies are at sometimes a little hungrier than others, our spiritual body may be a little hungrier at other times. I love that. I love it. Now, as far as you're working through or putting the book together, for many of our authors, they know just outright that they're going to use a publishing house. They don't want the responsibility of having to put the book together and make sure that it's proper and true. Others say, absolutely not. I wanted full control over it all, didn't want anyone changing anything, so I chose to self-publish. How did you determine which was going to be the best way for you, to self-publish or to use a publishing house?
Ironically, it came to me over the email. I was reading my emails, and I had just started writing, and the person contacted me on the email telling me they read my book, my previous book, and they wanted to know if I wanted to continue on with it. But it came to me in the email, and after I deleted it a couple of times, I said, Lord, if it comes one more time, because I believe in 3, then I'm going to respond to it. And that's how it did. Each time it came in the email. It was given to me. So the Lord was telling me it's time.
Absolutely. And I love that. Now, everyone who's heard my story before, this radio show thing started off as a podcast that grew into radio. And I was the same way. Well, Lord, if I'm supposed to do this, then it is meant for me, and I will definitely take this opportunity and run with it. So congratulations for listening to your heart and for knowing and having that discernment and knowing when God is speaking to you. It really and truly makes all the difference in the world. I tell you, it really does. Now, as far as the poetry for this book, for Poetic Parables is concerned, how did you get started in writing those poems in particular?
I started writing the poetry out of curiosity. I was asking God questions. You know, things happen in life and you don't always understand what's going on. And he is the creator of all things, so why not go to the source? So I would ask him, why do you think they do that? Why is this happening? You know, and so God would quote it to me, and I would write it. So he would give me information, insight of why things happen. And I said, wow. An example is loose pants. These people walking around here when that fashion came out, and they still doing it with their pants hanging down, and they walking all funny, and then they got to pull them up to run. I said, Lord, and they know that's a prison fashion, so why would they still wear it? And he explained it to me as loose pants is equated to a loose life, and he is the belt. So the poem is, Lord, yes.
I like where you're going with that, and I think that if we're all honest with ourselves, I think everyone on this earth has had a loose pants moment, right? We've all had a moment where it was like, Lord, I need you to gird me. I need you to help me through this. I like where you are going with that. See, when God gives it to us, it becomes an epiphany for everybody. I love that. I'm so glad I asked that question of you. Now, for so many people, when they write a book, they're writing because something has happened to them and they want to share the information, be it that it was a personal tragedy or trauma, or they have gotten a certain degree of education and they decide to share perhaps their dissertation or their newfound knowledge on a grander scale, so they write a book about it. Those who tend to be like in the arts with poetry and music, it's sharing kind of a personal piece of you guys because it's your thoughts shared a little differently. Why do you feel that you were really pressed to write this book for such a time as this?
Well, God was telling me it's time. He said there's a lot of people out there with the same questions that you had, and they're not asking me. They go through the same situations because there's nothing new under the sun, and they don't know what to do, so they don't ask me. So I want you to share your incidences and your situations and your scenarios with others so that they can see themselves in the situation and give them the answer.
I like that. I like that. And I say that because we do need mentors in our lives. And sometimes we can find that in some of the oddest places, thinking that, oh, I thought the mentor would come from work or from church or from an older person in my life, perhaps an aunt, an uncle, or one of my parents' friends. But many times we find that same mentor information from a book that we pick up. So I like where you're going with that. Now, in putting the book together, I know that for so many of my authors, they will say, Dr. Angela, this has been a work in process for over 5 years. You know, my writing here and there and rewriting the rewrite and so on and so forth. But then I've also interviewed folks that said, oh yeah, I put the book together in like a week's time, and it just all came to me as one big download. How long did it take for you to put Poetic Parables together?
Well, if I want to put it in the time frame, I would say 12 months off and on. There have been some months I've been going through certain things or I noticed certain things, and God gave me more poetry to write, because I asked more questions. Some months I asked little, off and on, because I was dormant. But that's how it finally came together. And I got a collection of poems, and even a poem about phone dating, with the internet. So he gave me a poem for that. For everything I was going through at the time, I wrote poetry about it. My motto is, God quoted, I wrote it. So he lets me understand it.
I like it. I like it. And, I think that is so helpful because you realize that if you write down what God says, you know that you're not writing down what you say. Like you are not getting in the way, but you're sharing with us what God has shared with you. I love it. I love it. Now, I have to ask you, when you've done all of the steps, you followed the process, and you now have your finished work in your hands. How did you feel holding the first copy of Poetic Parables in your hands?
I felt that I met God's need. I was obedient and accomplished what I should have done or what I did do. It felt good. I said, look, Lord, here it is. You told me to do it. I did it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I love that we are able to do what God has called us to do. And in that moment, it's like, and I think you expressed it the same way as many other authors have. Look at what we did. I did exactly what you told me to do, and here it is. Amazing, so I love it. I love it. Well, Alvina, it is time for us to get ready to go to break. But before we do, can you please remind everyone of the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and, of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Yes, the title of my book is Poetic Parables, Listen with Your Heart. You can get a copy from Amazon.com, or you can order from any bookstore order desk. You can also get it from my website, www.alvinasown.com. And contact me by my email, aypg54@yahoo.com, or on Facebook as Alvina Y. Platt Gregory.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is Alvina Platt Gregory, and we're talking about her book, Poetic Parables, Listen with Your Heart. I know, that is such an awesome title to the book. I really like it. Well, Alvina, my next question for you is, and you've kind of touched on it, but I want to give you an opportunity to spend a little bit more time there, and that is, what made you decide that you wanted to write spiritual poetry as opposed to just the things that go on in our day-to-day?
Okay, writing that, when I became closer to God, learning and hearing the preached word, I decided I wanted a better relationship, a deeper relationship with him, because he was the creator and is the creator of all things. So why not go for the best, go for the top one, instead of asking questions for other people. So I decided to just go straight to him for everything. And he's the one that decided, hey, all your writing, put it in poetry, and the book will come. But it was behind that, his guidance, and God is exciting. He's not boring at all. He is so exciting. I wrote a poem called Choose Life and Live, and in that poem it was telling people to stop drowning in life and learn how to swim. God is just awesome. I would write the stuff down, and when I reread it, my mind was blown. I said, wow, to see how God looked at things. And it just opened up my eyes, and I just wanted more of him to see his side, because, hey, only what you do for Christ will last anyway, right?
Absolutely. I love that answer. I love it. And it is quite interesting that you say that, because we do need to make sure that what we're doing is what God has ordained for us to do. I know that I talk about walking in purpose, and many times people don't understand what that means, but it's what you just said there. When God tells us to do something, we need to do that something, no matter what it is, even if it doesn't make sense to other people, or if other people don't see it. I have to remind people, hey, God didn't give them that vision. He gave it to you. It's for you to see. It's for you to carry out. So you are so right there. Now, I know that for so many of my authors that are on, especially those of you who write poetry, you don't really like to say that there's a favorite, just kind of like our children. We don't have a favorite child. You love them all equally, but unfortunately, folks do know that you might have a little bit more of a preference, let's say, for one over another. So I want to ask, do you have a preference or a favorite poem that you have included in your book?
Yes, I do. It's called Become. Jesus gave me this poem in 2003 when I was writing for the International Poet Society. And it goes like this. Jesus said, "Become like me, for I became like you, to experience all the things that you'll go through. Meditate on my word, it's for your making. Learn to get to others instead of taking." And then it goes on. So, hey, it's just so wonderful. That is my favorite poem in all the world.
It sounds like a very happy poem, one that kind of reminds you that you're not in this all by yourself. You're not in this alone, but that God is with you no matter where you are or what you're doing. I like it. Now, when it comes to working together, and I know that there may be someone out there that doesn't quite understand when we say that, God gives us these downloads, or he gives us this information and we're supposed to carry it out. Can you give us an example of how you and God work together? What does that look like? How do you do that for the person who doesn't understand?
Well, working with God is listening to what he says. It might not be what you want. In fact, 9 times out of 10 is not what you want. It's what God wants for you. Okay? So just be obedient and go with it. And if it's easy and you're at peace with it, you're doing what God wants. And my example was loose pants. Okay? How he equated it as loose pants with a loose life. Then he told me choose life and live. I'm sitting there, people going through confusion and all this kind of stuff. And he says, I am this dark world's light. Today, this season, why don't you choose life? So he's telling you to choose him. Life is easier with God. So working with him, you will find it easy. If it's not easy, then it's not of God. And everything in life has spiritual undertones. We got music and movies as examples. So when we're working with God and we're seeing these things, God will show you from listening with your heart the things that you should not be watching anymore, or how it just messes with your spirit. Because we are speaking spirits, and we have what we say. If it's in God's will, if it's a curse or a divine intervention, he will let us know. So we have to work with him by listening and obeying.
Yeah. I had to agree with you there, Alvina. Let me tell you, I have told people so many times that is also a confirmation for me. If it's overly difficult, I mean, it is roadblock after roadblock, obstacle after obstacle, perhaps that is not the path. That is not the way that I am supposed to go. And God is putting those roadblocks there for a reason. Stop trying to bulldoze your way through, but instead see that it says detour. See that it says stop or yield, or, that it's a red light there, and listen more for God's voice. And when he tells us to make a left turn or a right turn or proceed or pause, that it is in that perfect timing. So you are really saying a mouthful there. I love it. I have to agree with you there. Now, when it comes to a message or a theme, I know that for many of the novelists out there, they try to take us along on a journey through the various chapters that they share with us, and we're supposed to, learn something along the way, be it that we are inspired or encouraged, or we are shown the error of our ways. With poetry, sometimes you're getting a different theme or a different message with each piece of poetry, if that's how the author chose to set it up. When it comes to your theme, when it comes to the message that you wanted to share, how did you set your book up? What do you want the readers to take away from having read Poetic Parables?
I want them to understand that God is in everything. He wants you to ask him the smallest question, not only the large question, and he's not a tyrant. He's understanding. He's got a sense of humor. The different poems in there equate to everybody's life. Everybody's go through different situations. I have a poem in there called Godly Mother. Okay? Hey, everybody wants to be a godly mother. And if you don't know how to be one, it's laid out on how to do it. I want them to understand that there's also ways that can lead you to salvation and receive the Holy Spirit. I have a section in the book that can do just that for them if they so desire.
I like that. And it sounds like you're really trying to do that step-by-step guide for the person who may not read Scripture every single day or know how to really glean everything from it. They could use your poetry and as an additional resource or an additional tool and say, I think this is what Scripture is saying. For example, when you were talking about being a godly mother, and I was thinking about the Proverbs 31 woman and the example that we're given and how we should conduct our lives, that you can go, okay, and then read your poetry and say, okay, I see the connection in how I am supposed to carry out my day to day. I love how God shares, and he gives us those extra pieces of material. I love it. Now, for so many authors that I talk to, they have decided that they're not going to just stop with one book, that they will continue to write. So my question to you is about the horizon. What are your plans? Do you plan on continuing to write? Do you have other works that are available for the general public?
Yes. The title, Listen With Your Heart, that is the name of my first book. Poetic Parables, Listen With Your Heart, is the child to the parent. The parent is the first book, Listen With Your Heart. I took a couple of poems from there and I added the current encounters that I was going through with God. Because like I was saying earlier, when the publisher people, when they contacted me, they were talking about the parent book, Listen With Your Heart. But I said I had other poetry that I want to get done at that time. So that's what I did. And I have plenty of poems compiled. So they might just come out in different formats. Might not be still under Listen With Your Heart. But I don't know right now what God has for it. But I am compiling, and I have a lot of poetry.
I love it. And, I think the same is true when when I interview artists as well, especially singers and songwriters, they're constantly compiling works, Songwriters don't just write for a particular project. Anything can be an inspiration for them, and they want to share that and get that message down. So I think you're right that it is an ongoing process for you guys, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because before you know it, God will say it's time, and there will be another book available, already done. I love it. Now, I know that there is someone out there who is asking the question, and I ask this many times of my guests, that person who says, Dr. Angela interviews authors all the time, and everyone always says that their book is a must-buy, right? So with that being said, what makes your book a little different or unique? I guess what I'm asking is, why should someone purchase a copy of your book?
All right. Because my book is uplifting, it has humor, and then other people can relate. Like once I said before, everybody goes through everything, in different scenarios, different ways, in different degrees. It might be light for you, but it's heavier for her. And so when you go through something, you go through it, keyword, going through, so you can help somebody else. And so I want them to be able to read the book, see themselves in a mirror if the situation is pertaining to them, because there's a whole lot of different kinds of poems in there. There's one called Well Done, and we all want to hear God tell us, well done. So this is explaining that. He doesn't tell us to be perfect, okay? And I want them to just read it so they can be uplifted, so they can see that they're not alone. Everyone is going through different things, and the way you handle it is how you let God work in your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let God work in your life. We have to remind people of that, don't we? We have to remind them that God is God all by himself, that he doesn't need us to tell him how to be God. So I have to agree with you there. I love it. I love it. Well, Alvina PLATT Gregory, I have so enjoyed my time with you here today. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your book with my listeners. And I wish you just continued successes in all that you do. Now, before I let you go, though, can you remind everyone one last time, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And, of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Okay. Poetic Parables, Listen with Your Heart is the title. Author Alvina Y. PLATT Gregory. Okay. You can get it from Amazon.com. The parent book is also on Amazon.com. And you can stay in contact with me through Facebook by Alvina Y. PLATT Gregory or email aypg54@yahoo.com.
I love it. Thank you again, Alvina, for being a guest on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And listeners, thank you for tuning in and spending time with us as well. We hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you to be your best self today. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.